Alright, dramatic one today. I'm bringing you a video from the morning instead of the evening. I've got a glass of orange juice, I've swapped out the cup of tea, and there is a reason for that, and I'll get onto that. But first, we need to start from the start. So, recently on the podcast that I work on, we had a guest on called TJ Power, and TJ is the same age as me, he's a neuroscientist, and it was a cool episode. He's an interesting guy, but for me, he was the guy that had all of the answers I'm looking for. And what I mean by that is he effectively taught me, or not just me, he taught everybody that listens to that podcast a lot about brain chemistry, and it answers so many things about what I've been kind of battling with over the past God knows how many years now. So what TJ taught was that there are four super important brain chemicals. I'm not going to try and regurgitate what he taught, because if you just watch the episode, he'll be able to teach it way better than me. But ultimately, it's led me to go put myself on a dopamine detox and beat the addiction to fast dopamine, as he calls it. Now, dopamine is one of the four chemicals we need to do things and do tasks that we find difficult, do work, just anything. But if you have an imbalance and you have too much dopamine, then it causes you problems and just a lack of motivation. And that is the biggest thing that I've been battling with, right? A lack of motivation. And it kind of sounds probably quite surprising, considering, I bang on about how much I train for running and stuff, banging out these videos when I can, working full time, keeping up a social life and whatnot. But I've not been totally happy with how I've been feeling while doing all of it, and I literally have realised it's down to my habits and fast dopamine. Now, so the things I'm cutting out are, this is where I have to really put my neck on the line and hold myself accountable, right? But the reason I've switched out a cup of tea for a glass of orange juice this morning is, one, because I just kind of fancied an orange juice, but secondly, because caffeine is one of the things I'm supposed to cut out. Social media is another big one, right? How many of us sit there scrolling all day, more than we'd probably be willing to admit to doing? Basically, what that does is just give your brain fast dopamine, because social media is set up to make us addicted to it, right? So we stay on the apps longer and spend more money on the apps and stuff like that, and it just, is a mutual benefit, or so it seems. But that's actually not the case. You need to get off social media. And I mean, you don't need to get off social media. I'm not here preaching to people. Your brain chemistry might be fine, but mine was a bit of a mess. But the other three chemicals that we need to make sure we get enough of in our brain are oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Now, I'm not going to try and remember which activities contribute to which chemicals, because TJ will do that far better than me, right? I'm not going to discount all of his career in neuroscience, but the biggest one for me is dopamine, and I was probably for many years now running on the edge of being a dopamine deficient person, which sounds mental, but ultimately it's because I've been chasing fast dopamine for a long time, right? Whether it's video games, social media, junk food, alcohol, that sort of thing, it all is good for us in the short term. It makes us feel amazing in the short term, right? But in the long term, it just really negatively affects us, and I didn't really realise it. Obviously, I knew these things are bad, in moderation, they're fine, but overall bad. But I've always just been it's part of having a healthy, balanced life, and probably on the back of that, I've maybe dabbled in a bit of fast dopamine a bit too much, and it's caused me a lot of problems. And ultimately, I have goals and stuff I want to pursue and I want to do, I want to achieve, and I'm going to be talking about them on this channel, right? This is partly what it's for. But I'm not going to get into them all today. It's one step at a time. And ultimately what I'm doing is effectively slowing my life down. Now, it sounds like a bit counterintuitive, right? If somebody's got a lot of goals and stuff they want to pursue and stuff they want to achieve, that you'd be like, there's already not enough hours in the day, why aren't you speeding up a bit more? But that's actually just wrong. I've kind of been there and done that and learned the hard way about that. And especially when I when I was freelancing, right, the money I would earn would be dictated by how fast I worked and how, obviously, within not, you know, within reason. I couldn't just do things as fast as humanly possible. If the quality wasn't there, I wouldn't have been doing the jobs anymore, right? But, oh, my dog's just walked in. Hello, Stan. You okay? Good. Sorry, we've got a guest for the second time on this channel now. But, so ultimately, it was in my best interest to do things as fast as I could, right? When I was freelance and working on podcasts and editing and stuff like that. Editing's a time-consuming task anyway, so the faster you get that stuff done, the better. But during that season of life, if you want to call it that, I was very caught up in like the idea of what I think in video games it's called min-maxing, right? It's like, I can't even remember how it's defined, but it's pretty much how can I do the minimum effort, or how can I put in the minimum cost for the maximum outcome. Now in video games, right, it would be, an example of that would be like, oh, there's this hard boss that I want to beat. What's the cheapest gear and the cheapest way I can spend money on weapons and armor to beat this boss, right? Now that's if you're putting it in like a nerdy context, but I used to play video games a lot more, and that's one of the things I'm cutting out. And I learned that kind of mentality and applied it to work, and it really, really helped me with work. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and say it was rubbish, because it did really help me, but it also made me obsessed with efficiency, and that made me obsessed with fast dopamine, right? Because to do a lot of tasks, you need a lot of dopamine. Dopamine was a chemical that was invented, well, not invented, but it was like we evolved into having it to make us able to do hard things as hunter-gatherers, like either go out and find food or like make a fire or shelter or something like that. And then once you like complete the task, you get this hit of dopamine, which makes you be like, oh, this is good, I will do it again. So I was just constantly loading up on dopamine. You know, I'd have 3 screens at one time while I was working. I'd have an editing screen, a screen with like a long form video on where I'd be learning from, or either just there to just kind of soothe me in the background and just kind of help me focus and stop me from putting other stuff on that screen. And then my phone. My phone was important because I used it for WhatsApp, but then I had WhatsApp web as well, so I didn't really need my phone, but my phone stayed. And I would be scrolling, and oftentimes when you work in social media, it's very important to stay up to date with like trends and stuff like that, so that you know what's been going on, you know how the style of content is moving, what's doing well, what isn't doing well, and then also like mentally breaking down the content you're seeing and being like, this is good because this is good because this is bad because this has got no views because of this. And that helped me in my career, but it absolutely crippled me in terms of like being able to enjoy things and slow down. And it wasn't until, it came to doing stuff like meeting my friends or going out with my girlfriend or, spending time with my nephew that I realised like you get these kind of intrusive thoughts creep in that are like, wouldn't what I'm doing be more efficient if I was doing this at the same time? Or I could just, in 10 minutes, I've done nothing here, but I could go home and do this in 10 minutes and this would be equate to this amount of money and stuff like that. Such a toxic way of thinking. And I think a lot of people are probably stuck in this trap and they don't know why. I spoke to one of my friends the other day about running a half marathon next year. I'm not going to turn into a marathon running channel or anything like that, but we found a cool one and I said to my friend, like, would you be up for this? And he was like, yes, but he said, one of the things I've learned is you've got to stop lying to yourself. Like one of the best pieces of advice that he's learned is you have to stop lying to yourself. And he also said, realistically, no. He just said, I need to stop being so lazy. I said, because, you could definitely do a half marathon in a year's time. That's enough time to train, right? And he was like, yeah, but I'm just too lazy, man. And I was like, well, you know what? Let me link you this podcast that I'm preaching about in this episode, because I look at my friend and I know my friend well, and it's like, he's intelligent, he's ambitious and driven and stuff, and he works hard. It doesn't make sense that you're referring to yourself as lazy. And I don't think it is lazy. I think it's just dopamine deficient. I think people think they are lazy because they don't have the required dopamine to get the task done that they want to do. And this guy's been dabbling in running for a long time. Shout out if you're watching, you know who you are. This guy's been dabbling in running for a while now, and fitness of any kind, But yeah, I think I've just finally found out the answers to It sounds a bit cliche and cringe, right? No one has ever found out the answers. But right now, for the challenge I'm facing in my life, I definitely feel like I found out the answers, and what I need to do is kind of clear for me. I've got myself a little dopamine detox plan. One of the biggest things is just leave your phone alone. Obviously, I'm recording this video on my phone, but phones are the worst thing, right? We're attached to them, we're addicted to them, and there's like, I've even looked into like the signs of a dopamine deficient person to, see if I do qualify, and I definitely qualify. It's somebody like, one of the things I remember finding and being like, yeah, that's me, is someone who picks up their phone to check it even after they've just checked it. And I was like, yeah, this is, my brain's kind of cooked. So here I am on a dopamine detox. One of the biggest things one of the biggest habits I've built is the first half an hour of when you wake up every day, don't go on your phone. My phone sits here when I sleep, which isn't great. I need to get an alarm clock, but the alarm goes off, I wake up, I turn the alarm off, and I already see notifications there that have just come in overnight for stuff. And I'm tempted to unlock my phone, and then once I check those notifications, I'll then go into social media and scroll. I've stopped doing that today. Today's the first day. Today's day 0 or day 1, depending on how you look at it. And I feel better already. It's noticeable instantly. There's ways of building slow dopamine, right? Cold water therapy is one of those ways. Getting out for a walk in nature is another one of those ways. And this isn't all my theory, by the way. I'm just regurgitating what I've learned from TJ Power, the neuroscientist. I don't normally talk about work on here, but I just thought this episode was too... I hate, it sounds so cringe, but life-changing for me to ignore. So I thought I'd bring it onto my channel and mention it. So I'm going to actually put a link to it in the description in case none of this waffle has made sense. I think probably doing this dopamine detox will make me a bit clearer and help me articulate myself on YouTube a little bit more, because that's something I'm not very good at, but by making these videos, it's something I've been practicing doing. So that's good. But yeah, what a change to have a video in the morning rather than the evening for once. Probably is quite telling. I could have done it in the morning the whole time if I weren't scrolling social media and stuff. And it would have made my evenings a little bit more free, which I'd appreciate a lot. So yeah, funnily enough, I think slowing down is actually going to help my progress. It's an experiment. We'll see. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it will all go balls up, and we'll sit back here and reevaluate in a few weeks' time. But until then, I hope you've enjoyed. If you've listened this far, I hope it's meant something to you. Even if you don't relate, I hope you understand it a bit more, and maybe that explains a bit more about how your brain works. But for me, my brain's rotted, it's cooked, TikTok is to blame, and I will not be seeing any of you on TikTok anytime soon. Well, maybe posting. Posting's fine, right? Posting is like a difficult task to do, as in like making a video. It takes time, it takes planning, and I'm not constantly getting fast dopamine. So yeah, maybe I'll still post. Not that I've been posting on TikTok, I don't know why I've said that, because I haven't posted for a long time, but maybe I'll still post, and I'm definitely still going to be posting on here. This is a continuation of my little series of self-improvement and a journey I'm on. So yeah, have a good day, everyone. I've got plenty of work to do now. It's 9 o'clock. I should probably get to my desk in a bit.